We are the kings of everything. We are the kings of everything. And it's always a good time. If you're with us, you'll be fine. 'Cause we are the kings of everything.
Good Monday morning. Hey, it's Monday morning. It's that kind of Monday afternoon for me, let me tell you. Good Monday evening, everyone. Welcome to Monday Night Safety Stop. JoJo, what's going on tonight? It's hot. Well, you know what that means, right?
Got what?
I said, you know what that means. You said it's hot.
That's exactly what I was going for. Water temps gonna start.
That is true. I think it hit like 87 here today. Of course, you know these warm days. Depends on how cool it gets at night, but these warm days are definitely gonna start impacting and causing that temperatures to come up. And I can't wait. Water's going down. It's probably about almost a foot right now, so we're good there. And it looks like I've got a little bit of glitching going on here.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, a little glitchy. So right now we are up to 67 on the surface. So, just 3 or 4 days ago it was like 65. So it is coming up. That's a good sign.
You can unpack that wetsuit.
It's getting about time to roll up the old dry suit and start dusting off the wetsuit.
Yep. Hopefully everybody's ready for that.
Oh
Hopefully you
yeah,
got your gear in and serviced and ready to go for the season.
oh yeah. Well, this past weekend was the official opening of the dive season, so and I'm glad we did push it forward a couple of weeks because if we had opened when we had planned to open, you'd have been driving through water to get to a pavilion space. So, at least this weekend we didn't have to.
That and the visibility was a heck of a lot better.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. We went from like 6 inches to I believe between 10 and 15 feet this weekend.
So that's getting better. Water is slowly going down.
It is slow, that's for sure.
Uh, and our banking system works like a dream.
Oh yeah, I mean, so we actually gave the Nitrox Bank a good. I ain't gonna say a good test run. We filled 4 or 5 Nitrox bottles over the weekend, but I mean, it was so nice being able to hook it up and just pour the Nitrox to it and not have to worry about partial pressure blending. And a lot of people don't realize how much goes into partial pressure blending.
Yeah, you gotta know what percentage you're starting with, what pressure you're starting with, how big the tank is, or what's your final pressure.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, a
especially
lot goes into it.
yeah. I mean, if you're starting, if you have 1,000 pounds of 32% left, we have to figure if you're partial pressure blending, and if we've got any blenders watching, you definitely understand. You got to calculate how much O2 do I put in this thing, and then top it off with air to make it, come out exactly what I want it to. And that takes time. When you're trying to fill 20 tanks and then 20 air tanks, and you got 5 nitrox bottles, and all of them typically don't have 32. It's nice when they all are the same though.
Yeah, if you get straight aluminums and they all about have the same pressure and the same mix in them, yeah, that's a lot easier.
Well,
Hook them all up, do them all at the same time.
and in that situation, if they all have the same mix in it, but they're not the same pressure, you can always equalize them down. You're not changing the mix,
Yep.
but you are starting with the same amount of pressure, but you still have to calculate how much O2 do I put in it, and then how much air do I put on top of that for it to mix. But now, I mean, all we got to do is hook it up, hit the nitrox bank, put 32% in it, and we're done.
Yeah, Steve was down there filling his tanks, and I brought his first round down. And he was like, "You already back?" I'm like, yeah.
Oh yeah, nitrox fills are going to be a whole lot quicker and a whole lot easier this season, especially being able to continuous blend now and bank 32%. But it worked. We've stretched its legs, and we're getting 32 right out into the banks into your cylinder. So it's great.
Yeah. So I see Frank's on here. Steve's asking about you, Frank. Asking when you're getting ready to get wet.
Well, we all know Frank is a hibernator. He likes to
Yeah.
hibernate. He's what we refer to as a fair weather diver. Don't worry, Frank, I am too. The older I get, the more fair weather I am.
Of course, Todd's joining us too, so good to see him.
Okay, well, apparently my comments aren't updating, so there we go.
Make sure that those are the only two on my end. Let me know.
Yeah, like I just refreshed. I didn't see Todd's on there, but I just refreshed it and it popped up showing 2 minutes ago. So that's another reason why we're making the move over to YouTube starting in the fall. Is there's just Facebook is having so many issues that it's not funny. So and I think I had it is. On the link in the group here at the very bottom, I put our YouTube channel link, or the name of it, how you find us. So you can actually get on there, and we're simulcasting right now on our YouTube channel, just making sure everything's good to go. But anyway, more big news
Yeah.
for the park
Big
this
news.
week, huh?
Yeah, big news.
Big news. So yeah, so the big congratulations goes to our very own Brian Tierney. He spent the last 9 days. He's actually traveling back tonight or today, but he spent the last 9 days down in Boca Raton, Florida, at SSI headquarters, going through the SSI instructor trainer. So he sent me a picture yesterday afternoon. He texted it to me of him receiving his certificate of completion that says instructor trainer on it. And of course, that officially makes us at Pennyroyal a instructor training facility. So look forward to that, being able to get more instructors, not just for us, but if you're interested and you're at the level of a dive master and you're wanting to get into it, then we will be offering the open water instructor program as soon as I talk to Brian and we work out the schedule. I'm just waiting on him to get back. But big congratulations to him. He's worked really hard. I've known Brian for well over 20 years. I remember the days, when we first got started at the quarry, filling tanks off of a 5 CFM compressor. This is no joke. I'm not kidding at all. We would be up until 3, 4 o'clock Sunday morning filling tanks, get a couple hours sleep, go to Waffle House, get breakfast, and then come back and, be there for divers. So, we've been through a lot, and I can't say I'm super proud to be able to congratulate him on this huge milestone.
Yes. Now, Brian, you got something else to torture me with.
Hey, you know what? But, and that's one thing I have to say. If you've ever taken a class with Brian, he knows exactly what he's doing. He's been an instructor for over 20 years, or right at 20 years. He became an instructor either during college or right after college. I can't remember. But it's really interesting because Brian and I are close in the same age. He started diving in 1990. I started diving in 91. So, we're like, we both grew up in scuba. So that just shows, how much we love this sport, and being able to share that with people who are interested in becoming certified or, goes through the classes. But can't be more proud of him for sure.
Yeah.
So.
Pretty sure he learned some new torture devices.
Oh yeah, well, and I don't know if I know he was driving back. I think he said it's like a 17-hour drive, and he said he was going to. Well, and I teased him before he left. I said, "So do you have your cave gear in the back? That way, when you're traveling back through and you pass through cave country, you're going to stop just because you're fiending." He said, "No."
He's done. Wore out. Somebody gave him a little taste of his own medicine, it looks like.
Well, he said it was a really tough class. They would start, between 8 and 9 o'clock in the morning. They would go until 6, 7 o'clock at night. They would eat, had homework for the next day, and then, get some sleep and back at it. So he's like, it felt like I was there for a month. That was his exact words. So, but yeah.
Let me do it. Ain't gonna be me.
Oh, you're already at the assistant instructor rating right now. Yeah, you're probably going to be one of the first guinea pigs.
I've been a lot of his guinea pigs too.
But JoJo, let me ask you this question. Before, back years ago, before you came on board, you was what, advanced open water?
No, it's only open water. I actually got my
Oh,
advance with you all.
okay.
Get ready.
So I mean, and I have
I
to
worked out
say,
the end
from a just a personal stance, it is a joy being able to see like you and Jordan, who went through my open water class back in 2013, one of the classes that I taught, and seeing him come all the way up to instructor level. I mean, it's just, it's something that just, I'm proud of it, because we're spreading the joy of scuba, and the ones who follow that track want to share that love as well.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm already working on the next generation. So
The, ne- the next generation. Oh well. So tonight, we're actually going to be talking on a subject that we talked about. I don't know. It's been a couple of months ago. We had talked a little bit
we were
about
the
it.
PC last time, didn't we?
It was, yeah. But if you're looking for equipment, you don't want to buy new. What is a couple places you can go to look? Facebook Marketplace, eBay, places like that. So this actually, I know we had talked about that BC a couple of months ago, but this actually come across. I found this last week. I think it was Wednesday or Thursday. I seen it on Facebook Marketplace. And let me tell you, when I when I first seen this cylinder, now I don't know if how many viewers know I am a PSI instructor, so I teach inspectors, visual inspection and how to identify cylinders, their manufacturer, the stampings, what everything means. So I was talking to Joe this weekend. I told him about finding this, and so I thought it would be a good idea, because a lot of people, with aluminum prices, brand new cylinders are like $330. I mean, that's pushing what steels used to sell for. I mean, you spend $100 more and you can get a steel cylinder, but a lot of people will resort to finding used cylinders, and there's nothing wrong with used cylinders as long as you get one of the newer or the new alloyed cylinders. The reason for this is because the old alloy, what we call old, I don't know if you guys are familiar. I know JoJo is, but the old alloy Luxfer made them up until May of '89. Walter Kitty made them up until, or I'm sorry, let me back up. Luxfer until May of '88. Walter Kitty until May of '80 or until '89, end of '89. So there's still a few of them old cylinders out there that require special testing that to be done when they're inspected. A lot of places can't do that. The machines aren't supported anymore. So, and a lot of people don't have anyone qualified to do an eddy current test, which is required every visual, every hydro for these older cylinders. So that brings me back to what I was coming up with was I came across an ad on Facebook Marketplace, and I don't have my phone to pull it up and exactly read it word for word. But the long and the short, the description, and I'll show you. Let me show the cylinder. JoJo's seen it, and what would you when you seen that cylinder? What did you think? Hold on a second, Joe. Let me switch it because I think it's going to cut your audio.
Okay.
Hold on
First
just
thing
a
I
second.
thought was
All
that.
right, there we are.
All right. First thing I went, somebody's done some major tampering to this tank.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Well, and
that is
it's a picture, so you can't really tell if that's like grinding marks or if it's paint. I mean, you really can't tell from this distance. Now, I'm not going to list any, who has it, where it's at, or anything like that. But the what we're doing is giving you guys the information you need. If you see a deal on Marketplace or you see a deal on eBay or something, like especially cylinders, because there is a way you can tell if it's a new alloy or an old alloy. And the only surefire way is by the initial hydro date. Now, if you guys have not looked at, you've seen your cylinders, you've seen the stampings, you know the hydro date, but that's really hydro, maybe serial number, which is common. We have to keep up when our tanks need to be sent to hydro. The visual inspection stickers indicate when it was inspected. We know that it's a year from that date. So it's really easy to, if you don't know what you're looking for, to get duped. I mean, honestly, and I'm not saying that, intentionally, because there's a lot of people that don't know. They can say it's this, it's that, whatnot. The stamping is going to tell you. So that's the reason we wanted to come on here, bring this subject matter tonight, was go over how to identify the stampings on your cylinder. So, and I'm going to use this cylinder here for an example, just to tell you. Now, the description says that it is a used vintage cylinder, but it does have in parentheses that it is not the recalled Luxfer 6351 alloy, meaning it's not that old alloy. It is the new alloy, and it is made by Catalina. So, of course, there were so many red flags with this that I started to message the seller just to say, give a heads up. And it was like, he's probably going to tell me to go, kick cans and whatever else. I don't know what I'm talking about. But so I'm like, okay, well, I watched it and it's still on there. And I don't know. They have marked the price from $80 down to $25. But let's jump into the cylinder markings. All right. So JoJo, do you know how we can tell if this is the cylinders that we don't have to worry about, the new cylinders, or this is the old cylinders? Uh-oh, his audio, sorry.
Yeah.
All right, back up and restart.
Again, your big thing would be the birth date or the casting date.
Yes.
So this one's made December of 1980.
December of 1980. Let's see. And I apologize, guys. My comments are not auto-populating. I just refreshed. Michael Johnson's on here. Brian Schmidt. Anyway, good evening to you guys. I apologize. For some reason, Facebook's not updating and notifying me of comments. JoJo, can you see them?
I can. I'll try to keep a better
Okay.
idea.
All right.
So Brian's on here, 6351. Not
Yes.
quite sure what that means.
6351 T6 alloy.
Okay.
That's the old
Okay,
alloy.
the alloy. Okay.
Yeah, that's the old alloy. Now, keep in mind, if it is the 6351, that is the alloy required by federal law to be eddy current tested at hydro and at visual inspection. That's the old alloy. So, again, this cylinder here was said that it's made by Catalina based on the design and the alloy. Well, there's no way to tell the alloy unless you can see the hydro date. That's the key thing. Now, a lot of people don't know, but Catalina did not start making Scuba cylinders until 1986. So this cylinder was made 6 years before Catalina started producing Scuba cylinders. So, therefore, we know it's not a Catalina. Now, I don't know if I can zoom in, but the row just above that hydro, starting from the P291917, that's the serial number. That serial number is the serial number style Luxfer uses, which tells me that this is a Luxfer made cylinder that was produced in December of 80. Now, another giveaway that a lot of people don't realize, on the very top row, you'll see it says CTC DOT. Now, the CTC is the Canadian Transport Commission, DOT, Department of Transportation. That's what allows us to carry those cylinders in the back of our vehicles to the dive sites full of compressed gas. If it doesn't have that on there, then we are not legally able to transport those cylinders. But this is what gives us that permission to do so. Now, the next little set of numbers, the E6498, that is an exemption or special permit number that these cylinders were manufactured under. Now, I believe it was in June or July of 1982, they changed the E to, or the exemption special permit, that number, to 3AL. So all aluminum cylinders are 3AL. That's three. That tells you it's an aluminum cylinder.
You can tell
So
they stamped that apparently here recently.
yes,
They put 3AL as to change the
so yes. So after July of '82, I believe it's July of '82. Hydro or hydro requalifiers are required by law to stamp 3AL above that exemption number. So that's another key sign right there that this is a 6351 alloy. If it has that exemption or SP 6498, that is another key sign that it is the oat alloy. And, if you come across this cylinder, and think $25 is a heck of a deal, just be aware that there's not very many people left that can test these. That's required, the test that's required by law, the eddy current. So, be very cautious, especially with cylinders. We put a notice up last year. If it is a 6351 alloy, now we don't have a date because a lot of places, especially in Florida, if you've ever walked into a dive shop there, will have a sign that says they won't touch a cylinder older than like 1990. If it's older than 1990, they're not filling it, they're not inspecting it, they're not touching it. Excuse me. Ours is a little different, just because we know the Code of Federal Regulations on it, what the DOT requires. So that's on our policy. Is if it is a 6351 alloy, then we can't do anything with it, because if it's within eddy current, visual eddy and visual inspection, then yes, we're happy to fill it. But there's not very many people in the country that are doing the eddy current testing anymore. Let me see.
So yeah, Brian says he didn't know. He thought it was only done during hydro. Nope. Yeah, it has to be done even with the visual inspections every year.
Yes. So
So
that
it
is.
makes it hard to get done.
Oh yeah, and that's the reason a lot of dive shops have just kind of wiped their hands. Hey, listen, if it's older than 1990, we're not messing with it. Now
Yeah.
the problem with that is, and let me cut back to us here because I'm looking here at this cylinder. The problem is that Catalina, everybody knows Catalina cylinders. Catalina has never made a Scuba cylinder out of the 6351 alloy. They're using the same alloy now that they started using when they started making cylinders in 1986. Matter of fact, that's the ones that are currently in production 2025 is the 6061 alloy. So as you can tell, if you say, you can't touch a cylinder older than 1990, well, that's kind of true, but kind of not, because Catalina has never made them out of the old alloy. So Catalina cylinders have no issues. You could bring in a Catalina cylinder that hydro of 1986, 87, 88, 89. Guess what? You can get a visual inspection on it. You can get a feel on it. No questions asked. But if it's a Luxfer, Walter Kitty, or any of the ones that were made out of the old alloy, you're not going to be able to do anything with it. I mean, might as well make it a lampshade, or a lamp, yard decoration, mailbox, grill. I mean, there's all kinds of things you can do. I cut one up to use in my visual inspector courses. So that way you can actually, my students actually can see the thickness of the sidewalls of the cylinder, the bottom of the top. And I mean, you'd be surprised how thick the bottom and the top actually are. The sidewalls, they're, I mean, relatively thin, maybe 3/4 of an inch, if that. So, I mean.
So Brian says that he doesn't want that splitting on his back.
Well, and
Say,
the
that's
the
not
good news,
really
do I?
your problem or my problem because it's gonna blow up when I'm killing.
So, and that's something else. Divers don't realize these aren't going to blow up on your bike. That's not when they let loose. When they let loose is at the filling station when they're being pumped up and they're getting more pressure. Now, we talk about the 6351 alloy. Why does it do this? Well, there's a thing called sustained load cracking that forms at the neck of these cylinders, these old alloy cylinders. And it's not something that develops, over a couple of weeks, a couple of months, a couple of years. I mean, it can literally take 8, 10, 12 years of that cylinder being, setting with pressure on it. So another reason that, if you're going to leave a cylinder like this setting, drain it down to a couple hundred PSI, just enough to keep condensation and moisture out of it, but not enough where it's at full service pressure, especially if you're going to leave it for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, because it's going to sit there at that pressure, and that sustained load cracking is just going to keep forming. And like I said, it's not something that's going to just, spontaneously happen. It takes time. So.
Well, luckily we don't have to really deal with that still as much anymore.
Yeah. And we don't. I mean, as an industry whole, we don't really see a lot of these cylinders anymore. Dad's on here and he said it will make a great mailbox. Hey, there's another idea with it, take it to the aluminum scrap yard, get you a, aluminum price for it, whatever. But now if you live in a place that somebody who is a eddy current technician that can visually inspect, eddy current test it, and all that, and everything comes back good, guess what? You can still use it. But if it doesn't have eddy current on it, and it doesn't, and you have to, I mean, that's part of the law. The requirements is you have to have an eddy current test at the time of visual on these old cylinders.
We went from a bad VC to a bad tank house.
Well,
and grinding parts on this thing too.
Oh yeah. Well, and that's again because I know, a lot of people don't want to spend $330 on a brand new cylinder. And, a lot of people are always looking for a deal, and, they see a Scuba cylinder. If you don't know any better, then it's like, hey, it's a Scuba cylinder. We're good. Ooh, I can buy this for $25 and fill it up and go diving with it. People's going to think they're getting a deal when they're actually not. And so that's, I know like a lot of hydro testers anymore won't even hydro them.
Why? I mean, you really put pressure on them then.
Well, yeah, you do, but the reason they won't test them is because they don't have the eddy current. And by law, to when they hydro test it, they have to eddy current test it. So, and again, I think there was back in the day when these cylinders, the recall first come out. I remember it. I mean, it was the recall come out in 93, 94. It's about the time that we opened, actually. Or I say recall, the safety notice. It wasn't actually a recall, it was a safety notice. But, and that was the thing when that come out. And so these manufacturers, I think there were three of them that come out with the eddy current testing technology. And they maintained that for probably a good 15, 20 years. And nowadays, there's none of the machines are supported. Something folks don't realize is those machines have to be calibrated by the manufacturer yearly. So if the companies aren't supporting them, guess what? They're not getting calibrated. So
They're still supporting them, right?
yeah, I mean, it's gotten to the point where these are pretty much obsolete. Like Dad said, makes a great mailbox. I've seen people cut them in two, make little charcoal grills out of them. I had a gentleman last year who asked me if I had an old cylinder, and I asked him what he was doing with it or what he wanted it for. He was making a lamp for his scuba room. And I'm like, sure, can't do anything with it. Here you go. Because, literally, you can't. I mean, we don't have a tester. We don't have a machine. We don't have anybody qualified for it. Like a lot of places, just because they are so few and far between anymore. But occasionally, like on Marketplace, you'll find them. And, I don't know if you browse Marketplace very much, JoJo, or not.
Not
But
very often. I don't really find much on there that I want.
well, and I just get on there like, if I'm bored, I'll get on there and look and just see what's on there. And of course, anytime I see something scuba gear related, then, it kind of clues me in, and I look and see and, kind of see what kind of condition it stuff's in and all that. And, if they're asking way too much money for it, if they're not asking enough, it's just one of those things. Call it a hobby. In my free time, I'm looking at scuba gear.
I mean, I'll get on there and I'll find people trying to sell. Get this $300 wetsuit. It was made back in the 1980s.
Oh yeah.
That thing's probably gonna rip apart as soon as you put a leg in it.
But yeah, I mean, with let's see, Brian says, do you feel storing any cylinder for more than 6 months fully filled is not a good idea? I do not. And I'll tell you why. Because with the new alloys, all the aluminum cylinders right now are made out of. Even steel cylinders, they are not susceptible to that sustained load cracking. So, I would feel comfortable. I mean, we do. I mean, look at our rental equipment, our rental cylinders. In the wintertime, we leave them stored full in the racks until it's time to do the visual inspections in March. And then we'll take them down and we'll drain them, do the visual inspections. And as long as they pass, they get filled and put back on the rack, ready for divers to rent during the season. So I don't have, as far as storing a cylinder full for 6 months, I wouldn't let them set longer than, 3 or 4 years, because believe it or not, the air will go stale. And
Well, that's what I was thinking is steel tanks will actually eat the oxygen content.
and that's true. Yeah.
In the air.
Yeah, if you have a steel cylinder and it's got any kind of rusting or anything in it, over time that rust will consume the oxygen content in it and will decrease, from 21%. Will decrease that. If you got nitrox stored in it, it's going to cause it to decrease and cause even more rusting because you've got a higher oxygen percentage in it. So, it's a case by case, really. But the general rule of it is no. You can leave them stored for 6 months. You can leave it stored for a year, with no worries on the new alloys. The old alloys, like I said a while ago, if it's going to be stored for an extended period of time, then I would go ahead and just leave a couple hundred psi in it. And if you have a hydro tester and someone who can eddy current every year, then you're keeping a tab, what's going on with that cylinder year by year, and eventually it's going to get to where it doesn't pass the eddy current, and now you're left with a mailbox, a grill, lamp, whatever your creative idea is. See, I don't know why this thing's not refreshing the comments, but it's not.
And Brian was the last one on there, about 6 months.
Okay.
Last time I see it.
But yeah, I mean, that's just like I was saying is, if you're watching this and, you're looking for, cylinders or whatnot, just kind of read into it, know what you're looking at, especially with cylinders, because a lot of people don't realize that the old alloy, the only way to tell what a cylinder is made out of is really that hydro date. That hydro date is paramount when it comes to differentiating, is this the old alloy or is this the new alloy? That's the only surefire way to tell.
Don't even really have to remember all that information. You got a question about a tank? Bring that picture and we'll be glad to look
Oh, yeah.
at it.
Yeah, most definitely. If you find something, or, I mean, even here, I don't know, will our comments allow photos? I don't think they will.
I wish they did because boy, I'd post a bunch more stuff on there. They're not
Well,
very good stickers.
and I don't know if it will on YouTube or not. I'm not sure. But yeah, I mean, and you can always post it to the group and, tag, one of us in it. And, we'll be happy to take a look and, kind of give you what we think about it. It's not that big of a deal. We just want everybody to be safe and not get hoodooed. And like I said, a lot of people who sell stuff like this, they don't really know what they have. And
Their uncles died. Now they're cleaning out their garage.
oh yeah, I mean, I get phone calls like that all the time. Hey, my parents died and they were divers and we've cleaned out stuff. We've got this gear. Can you take a look at it and just kind of give us an estimate of how much it's worth? And, and I've done that on several occasions. And the bad news, when they have cylinders like this is, I tell them, really, it's worth the value of the scrapyard, what the scrapyard will give you for it, because nobody does the eddy currents anymore. You can't get them inspected without an eddy current test. Without that, we can't put it in service. So it's basically a doorstop paperweight. Now, it's awfully big paperweight, but
It's good. If you're gluing stuff in woodworking or something, plop that sucker on.
yeah. Well, and we have several of them that we have a decorative idea that we're going to do. Excuse me, eventually, once we get to that point, excuse me, but, it's one of those things, you can't use them unless they're tested. If you tried to use it and it would fail eddy current and somebody tried to fill it, that's probably going to fracture at some point and either hurt or kill whoever's filling it. And it's just not worth it.
That's why we don't want people in the fill room when we're filling. And honestly, a lot of us will step away from the tank too while it's kind of doing its thing. So.
Yeah. Brian wrote on here, what are your thoughts on using phosphoric acid in steel tanks to prevent rust? So there is now on the newer cylinders, like the Fabers, Faber puts a coating that really helps minimize rusting inside the cylinder. Some of the older cylinders, PST cylinders, for example, haven't been made in several years. They just got the special permit renewed a couple of years ago, but they do have a tendency to rust year over year. Really, the easiest way is doing a either a dry tumble or a quick whip to get the surface rust out. And that's something like we do in house. We have all that stuff and the technicians to do it. But as far as putting something in your cylinder, I don't recommend it. When they get hydroed, of course, the hydroers, they'll put some what they call rust inhibitor. So whenever they rinse it, they drain it, they'll put rust inhibitor in it, and then they'll dry it. And that's supposed to help keep surface rust from starting. So honestly, like I said, I wouldn't put anything into that cylinder unless you're trained, you know what you're doing, because I mean, literally anything that can eat away at the metal, it's going to cause you problems down the road.
Yeah, especially if you start pitting and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, yeah, and you got to think. I mean, you can see pits, but you can't really get a good. You can get an estimate of how big a pit is, but you don't really truly get the exact size because you can't get down in there to measure it.
Yeah, we use
And
a little pit, and it's like, okay, I think it
mhm,
feels like
yeah. Now, that's something also that PCI is working on. That's going to be available to inspectors. I don't have a time frame, but they are supposed to be coming out with some kind of new gadget to where you can measure pits in on the interior of the cylinder. But again, that's going to only be available to certified inspectors that's able to inspect the cylinders. But yeah, no, I wouldn't put anything in there, unless you know what you're doing, because you can actually cause more problems than good. And now you're sitting with a mailbox, a grill, a
yeah.
paperweight.
Ass is kind of hard on metal. They're
Yeah.
probably a decent way to do it, but that's not a recommendation I would do. Now, if you're looking to clean the outside of a tank, like try to remove some nasty seawater, rust kind of
Hmm.
stuff, use some fine grit sandpaper. That way, you're only taking off the surface. And again, it's only the outside part you're doing.
You can do well.
So,
Even like a steel
200 grit
wire brush.
sandpaper do a lot. A wire brush, yeah.
Yeah.
Say I got some bad aluminum ones from my dad. Not that the tanks were bad, but I mean, literally, they're white and they're supposed to be brushed.
Oh yeah,
uh,
I remember that. I mean, and it was
yeah,
because he's in Florida. You've got the salt content. Diving salt water all the time, and salt and the humidity. So it wreaks
yeah.
havoc
I
on
mean,
them.
I just started at like 50 grit on that, worked my way down until it was nice and shiny again.
Well, I remember we had to roll them. I remember that.
Yeah, we rolled them just to make sure that they were clean.
Yep. Frank asked, "What is an eddy current test?" So, an eddy current test, it's actually a computer-based diagnostics. There's a sensor that screws into where your valve screws into the cylinder, and that sensor you have to screw it down, but you do it very slowly. And what happens is that sensor detects any kind of micro fractures or cracking in the threads in the neck of that cylinder. Think of it like an ultrasound or something on that aspect. But that's basically what it does. And when it finds one, it'll alert and let you know where it's at so you can mark it. But that's what it is. And you have to watch the computer screen and slowly screw that probe into the cylinder to read or to gauge it. And so that matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, I think Windows 95 is the only operating system that works on. So if that tells you how old these machines are and they have not kept them up and come up with updates and they don't support them. If they did, we'd be running them on Windows 10, Windows 11, all that, but they don't. And so that's the reason why you're going to see a lot of these cylinders, not a lot, but you're going to see cylinders that are the old alloy. You're going to see them dirt cheap because people, you can't do anything with them. And so that's kind of, the long and the short of it is we want you to be able to know if you're looking for a cylinder, the key things to look for is for used cylinders is the hydro date. That way you know that it's either a new or old alloy. The manufacturer, and I didn't really touch on this a while ago, but the manufacturer, like I said, the one we looked at was Luxfer. Luxfer cylinders always start their serial numbers out with a P. It's a P and then typically 6 numbers after that. That's Luxfer. That's the way they serialize their cylinders. Catalina usually uses 2 alphabet, either AA, CC, AS, and then there'll be 5 or 6 digits after that. That kind of gives you an idea. And most of the times they're stamped on the cylinder too. The one that we looked at a while ago said U.S. Divers. Well, back in 1980, Luxfer made cylinders for USD, U.S. Divers. So the cylinders were stamped USD. Now they are either stamped with the actual manufacturer or a manufacturer's code. So, really important to know, as far as your cylinders, your stampings, what they mean, so that you can make sure they're as safe as possible.
Yeah, like the hammer test for the steels we do.
Oh, yeah.
You
Those
know,
are always
simple
fun.
bell ringing. And, we can tell just by the sound if the cylinder's got a crack in it or
Uh,
not.
Brian says like ringing an anvil with the hammer to test for a crack. It kinda. I'm not exactly sure if it's acoustical, if it's light sensor. I'm not really sure how the eddy current does. That was an option that we had when we went through the instructor program to teach cylinder inspectors. But the instructor trainer broke it down real simple that they had only trained 3 people in the last year on eddy current testers, and they were teaching thousands back in the day of testers, and so it's just something that they've kind of phased out of just because you don't see them. Looks like Jordan's on here. Got on here late. How did the Nitrox Bank do this weekend? JoJo, I'm gonna let you answer that.
I tell you what, I'll go help teach one day, and he can run the air room. See how much he likes it.
You're gonna make him do it the old way, right?
Yeah, he's got to do it the old way. Then we'll show him the new way. We'll, cut the old. But yes, Jordan, it's a game changer
Oh yeah.
for the field room.
Yeah. Randy asked, do all manufacturers use the same alloy now? Yes. Every cylinder manufactured worldwide uses the 6061 alloy. Matter of fact, the old alloy, the 6351 alloy, it is actually banned from cylinder manufacturing. So no one worldwide are producing any kind of cylinders out of that old alloy. Not since 1989. So all of them are the same. Thunderbird, Impact Metal, Luxfer, Catalina, those are the main ones that we see here in the U.S. All of them made out of the exact same material, same alloy. I'm sorry, I keep pausing. I'm having to refresh my comments so I can try to keep up with everybody. But yeah, I mean,
You want to watch out for those old Luxford tanks with old J valves on
yeah.
them,
Well, now don't get them confused because you can, back in the day before they started making cylinders out of aluminum, I mean, you may come across some steel cylinders that look almost like aluminum.
Oh
Because
yeah.
they didn't start making aluminum cylinders, I think, until 1972, if I'm not mistaken. Everything made up to that point was steel. We've got a brand new 1963 steel cylinder sitting in our classroom. This thing has never seen the water. It was a shop display from a shop that went out of business, and we acquired it. And I mean, it looks brand new, and it's 1963. A little out
Yeah,
of hydro.
I always get thrown out when we get a high pressure aluminum come in.
Oh,
What? Aluminums are all 3,000. What do you mean a high pressure aluminum?
oh yeah, the Super 80s, the aluminum 100s. Oh yeah, yeah. There's not a ton of them, but you can get them. I don't, if I'm going to go, to aluminum that's 3,300, I'm going to go ahead and bump up to steel. That way you don't have
Yeah,
the buoyancy issues. I don't have to add extra
yeah. Go
weight.
on and get the extra weight on the tank. Yeah, I would do.
Yeah.
The
And
reason I'm with aluminum is because it's light.
oh yeah. Well, used to, and this is true as far back as, 10, 15 years ago. I remember selling aluminum cylinders for $189 out the door, filled, ready to go dive. You know, and that was, just 10 years ago. And now, I mean, you know, what people don't realize is that dive shops don't make any money on cylinders. There's really no markup, or not much of one. By the time you get the cylinder, you pay for the shipping and all of that. I mean, it's there's dive shops just don't make money on cylinders. They don't. They'll make the money on the visual inspection and the air fills. But as far as a new cylinder, it's not there. And now, like I said, a brand new cylinder is $330. Throw another $120 in there, $130, and you're working on a steel 100.
Uh, Hay fills.
K fill. Yeah, let's
Randall,
not do K fills.
Randall wants to go to cave fills. I'm like, no, that really detriment the tank.
Well, and and that's something, you don't have to be a dive shop professional to go through the visual inspector course. It is open to, visual inspector is open to anybody, especially if you have, you know, 3, 4, 5, 10 tanks, that you personally own. That can get expensive having a visual inspection done every year. So, you can go through and become a visual inspector. And it's a really interesting program because you dive more in depth than what I've talked about here tonight. I basically given you one little bitty portion, you know, identifying cylinder markings. That's basically what I've done tonight. But there's so much more involved with it, and like I said, it's open. Anyone who wants it. We do teach it there. At Pennyroyal. I just got done doing a class for a shop up in Evansville this past Wednesday. Trained six new inspectors up there. So a lot of information. It's a long class. It's about 8 hours. But when you walk out of that, you're going to walk out with a whole lot more knowledge, a whole lot more resources. If you only own 1 or 2 tanks, it's not that big of a deal. But if you've got 5 or 10 cylinders, it's going to save money by being an inspector because you can do your own. You know what you're looking for. You know what the laws are. How the cylinder has to be, and so forth. But yeah, especially don't do K fills. Yeah, that's
You want to shorten the life of your expensive tank.
Exactly, exactly. And I'd like to, and I tell you, because we only got about 4 minutes left. I actually reached out. This is totally different. Reached out to Diva Velo today. I'm waiting to hear back about getting somebody to come on the show and kind of talk about that system. But that brings me to this. I'd like to see if I could get Mark from PSI to actually come on and you know talk about it because he is the material expert when it comes to cylinders and cylinder safety. Um, he's been doing this for 40 years, So, he's got a lot of in depth knowledge. He stays on top of it. And the good thing I like about PSI is that when they get new information, they filter it down to us, the instructors, so that we have it for our classes and that we can pass that information on. So that's one of the vantage points that I absolutely love about PSI is when it comes to cylinder safety, the whole goal is zero explosions year after year. And that has actually been obtained two different times, 2015 and 2018. There were no scuba cylinder explosions anywhere worldwide in those 2 years. So, Brian says, do you guys have hydro testers on site? And can you do a couple for a customer while they are diving? Unfortunately, we don't. We do. That's the only thing we really can't do is hydro testing. We do have to send those out. Everything else we do in house. Inspections, we can O2 clean, we can, tumble. Anything else with a cylinder we can do besides hydro and eddy current. Those are the only two things we can't do.
Yep. Hey, that's a lot of information.
It is. I mean, you sat through the class with me, the full 8 hour class, and it's a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't realize. And I feel like I haven't let you get a word in edgewise tonight, JoJo.
You're the expert on the tank stuff. I just fill them.
I'm just here.
Yeah.
I am just
Uh,
here. But
yeah, I got six of my own, so I know how expensive it gets. And sending them off the hydro. Luckily, I can fall back on the inspection part myself.
oh yeah, I mean, luckily hydros are only every 5 years. You're not having to do that every year, but I mean, when you take, most places average is $25 for a visual inspection and fill. That's kind of average. Some places are more, some places may be a little less, but the good ballpark's about 25 bucks a cylinder. If you've got two, you're going to spend 50 bucks a year on your maintenance for your cylinder. If you got 10, you're spending 250 bucks, so, and you can get in the inspector class for 350. So, I mean, weigh your options. But no, like I said, I wanted to bring this up. So, it's important to know on cylinders, what cylinders are old alloy, what cylinders are new alloy, and how to be able to tell if it's new or if it's old alloy. Because again, JoJo, how's the only way we can tell?
By the date.
By the date, the hydro date. And and that's something else, that you learn in the visual inspector course is you learn those dates. Like I said, May of 88 is the last May of 88. May 31st, 1988 was the last day Luxor made the old alloy. If it was June after June 1st at forward, new alloy. And then of course, the other big one that you don't even see them anymore are the old Walter Kitty cylinders that nobody touches. A lot of them exploded. It's just, hydro testers don't even hydro them anymore. But they quit making them in December of 89. So, all right, JoJo, it's 9 o'clock. Any final thoughts for us for this evening?
Mm, not too much, man. I'm glad the water's warming up. Man, look forward. printed a bunch of flyers off for everybody to pick up on some of our trips this year. If you swing by and are interested, grab a flyer at the shop. We're on the website.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Other
Lots of
than
good stuff
that,
going on. Me and JoJo's going to be doing a little bit of traveling over the next couple of years, getting some more experience and seeing new places and well, not so new places, but new dive sites anyway.
that's my focus is getting the traveling part going.
Yeah.
So looking forward to it. We're off now for 31 years, right?
Do what? Yeah, year number 31. Yes.
31 start, yeah.
Yeah, year number
So,
31 started Saturday morning,
Not
9
at all.
a.m. So hopefully, if we're
A lot of
lucky,
fun
maybe
doing it.
another 20. Anyway, all right, guys. Well, we're gonna wrap stuff up tonight. Want to thank you guys for tuning in with us. We love getting on here and being able to converse with you guys on Monday nights. Different subjects, talking about different things, whether it's travel, equipment, anything to do with scuba. Because I absolutely, I love scuba diving. I've been doing it basically all my life, so it's one of those things that I thoroughly enjoy, and I love to be able to share knowledge that I've learned over the past 30 years with you guys. So with that being said, if you're diving this weekend, we hope you're diving with us, and we can't wait to see you. If you're not, we hope you have fun, safe, and adventurous diving weekend. If you're not diving, still have fun, stay safe, and as always, we'll catch you guys right back here Monday night safety stop next week or next Monday, right here on the Penny Royal Divers Group, and now our YouTube channel. And where's my cut video? There it is. All right, guys, y'all have a safe week. We'll catch you later.